Hello and welcome to another Panther Podcast Weekly. This week, we're going to take a dive into the Ohio Dominican football program. A reminder that you can catch all of our past episodes of Panther Podcast Weeklies by going to YouTube, search and subscribe to Ohio Dominican Athletics, and you can get updates on the latest podcast and release dates as well by following on social media, on Twitter and Facebook, by going to ODU Athletics. In 2016, Kelly Cummings became the third head coach in ODU's football history. In 2017, he led the Panthers to a Great Midwest Athletic Conference title and was Coach of the Year that year in the conference. And today, he's our first guest on this week's Panther Podcast Weekly. Coach, thanks for taking the time to be with us. Normally at this point, at the beginning of August, we're about ready to ramp up. I'm going to ask you all those horrible questions about X's and O's and who's starting and who's not that you hate to answer. So let's go with a whole bunch of other questions that you don't want to answer right now. Last week, the conference, the Great Midwest, announced that they, unlike a lot of other Division II conferences that were shutting down until the start of January, they're going to go on a little pause, a little delay right now, and try and pick things up game-wise, competition-wise at the end of September. What has that done for you, your staff, and I guess our conference to know that your season's not over, that there's still hope that we're going to try and play something come late September?
I think if you look at it as a conference, we're sending the right message out, which is, we do want to play. We take athletics seriously at our level, and we do see the benefit of it, that it has in our players' lives, our coaches' lives, and just our campus life in general. And so I think it's the right message. I think it's a great decision to delay it right now, and I think that every moment that you delay buys you a little bit more time on the back end to make sure that everyone's healthy, following protocols, figuring out all the protocols, and able to execute those things. And so I'm, I think it's a good decision at this moment. And, and for us as coaches, players, it's bought us all more time to, get things done that we normally would have gotten done earlier in the summer, a little bit later in the spring. And so as far as pushing papers, time schedules, practice schedules, buses, you name it. And, it's given us time to try to get all those things ready and get them in place for when the players return here in the next week or two.
This is probably the longest time period since you've been a coach, whether it was at Division III, Division I, or now Division II, that you've actually been away from your players. You go all the way back to spring. ODU had not started spring football practices. You were about ready to do that when they came back from spring break. All the summer stuff you typically would do, you haven't really been able to do. This has probably been a little frustrating that you haven't been around the guys, the players, like you normally would be.
Yeah, we, as much as we talked about during the lockdown, having FaceTime meetings and those things with our players. I mean, we did a lot of it, but it's you're right. It's not the same as being around them on a day-to-day basis and being in that working environment. I think I was in the check-in and hassle them all the time environment. Have you done your paperwork? Have you got this class done? And all of those things. And all you could do was cheerlead and try to be a good mentor. But as far as holding something over their head to get things done, it's a little tougher. It was a little different. But yeah, I mean, it's been a strain. Anytime you have a relationship, you can't be around. It'll put a strain on it because questions go unanswered, and it makes it a little bit harder. But our guys have gotten back on campus slowly over the summer, and we've been able to see them through some workouts and some individual skill instruction. So it's helped us bridge the gap, somewhat.
You have probably one of the biggest challenges because you have the largest numbers of players on your roster, well over 100 players on a football team. Now, you do have a little bit bigger staff. So you've mentioned the Zoom calls and trying to do things that a lot of the other teams have been able to do because maybe they only have 10 to 20 players on a roster. Have you been able to do that as the head coach? Have you kind of given them to your position coaches? Hey, you take that group of guys, you take that group of guys, I'll take this group of guys. How differently has it been for you than other coaches on staff here?
Yeah, I think we did two different types of meetings. We did FaceTime meetings, over our phone, and then we did actually Zoom calls with players, and we did it per position group. And so I would put out the message to our staff, our coaches, and then it was up to each one of those guys to go and individualize with that group, Zoom as a group. And then what I tried to do, we would go on a rotating basis for me. Once every week. It would be a couple of different times through the week, but I would rotate through all the different position groups, making, Zoom meetings, Zoom calls. And so a little time consuming at times, but I think it was always great to get on on those calls with our guys and try to answer questions and try to give them as much clarity about what we wanted to accomplish, going into the next however many months of lockdown and into the spring, into the summer.
Can you speak to the difficulties? You mentioned the protocols and all the things that you're going to be trying to do and try and implement coming up here when students do get back on campus and you're able to start having full team workouts again. Football obviously is the one that has the biggest challenge because you have the most contact of any of the other sports. You have the most players than any of the sports. So maybe a couple of the biggest challenges that you and your staff are going to have when it comes to the protocols and how you're going to actually work your practices.
Yeah, the big thing for us are the meeting times and the meal times, and filtering in and out of our locker room. And so the limitations at each one of those things, basically in the locker room, we'll start filtering into the locker room, and the training room we'll start filtering in an hour before practice would normally start. So if you have a 4:30 start, classes into 3:20, usually you got a meeting and got to the training room or out on the field by 4:30. What we'll do is we'll switch our meeting schedules and go morning meeting schedules. And then, you're out of class at 3:20 and they have that whole hour, we have group A, B, C, D, E, F, G to rotate into the locker room, to the training room, and out to the field. And so, it's it's going to take a little bit of juggling on our part, but, and then we have rotating days, within those schedules. And so, it's fairly easy to map it all out. And, I'm sure there'll be things that we change. The things that, most concern me are basically the meal times, and as our players are in and off the, coming on and off the field, and you're trying to get them off the field in the same fashion and get them over to the cafeteria. And, you've got to move at a pretty quick pace and get off the field at a good pace so you can still get over to the cafeteria and eat in time before they close. And so it'll be a little bit touch and go for the first couple of weeks, I'm sure.
There's no manual for anybody. It doesn't matter what walk of life that we're in right now on how to handle these things. So is this a lot of phone calls between your peers, former head coaches, other assistant coaches on maybe how other places are doing it, and you guys are trading off ideas?
Yeah, and I think that's been the biggest thing. It's one huge co-op out there, and that's really what I've done. I've fielded the same phone calls, and a good friend of mine this morning, John Fankhauser from over at Walsh, called me this morning and was asking me, "Hey, how are you guys doing this training room wise, A, B, C, D?" And what you find out is you really find out how good the people are around you when it comes to making all the tough decisions and facilities in and out, and so it's been a lot of emails and a lot of time on the phone, and I've got to the guy that reserves all of our rooms here on campus is going to hate me here in like the next 48 hours when he gets this schedule and that I've been working on for 2 months. He'll tear it up and throw it away, but and the same thing with our people across the street in the cafeteria. We're trying to keep them aware of when we're on and off the field, in and out of practice, so we don't swamp them, and we can rotate through at a brisk pace to where the rest of the student body can eat too. And so it's just been a lot of phone calls, a lot of discussions, and a lot of back and forth. And what you find out is everybody's just hamstrung by the same thing, no matter your facility. And everybody's trying to find a way to kind of dig through it. And I mean, with us, it's even been, hey, we're going to have, hybrid meetings with our football team. And so half of the team will be there. The other half will be distanced in their dorms watching it, very much like what we're doing today on the phone. And, and so again, it's going to take some getting used to. And like I said earlier, I think the longer we can delay the decision on this, the better the outcome will be for all of us.
Coach, there's been a lot of discussion, I guess, amongst maybe the Division I schools, the big profiting schools, about pluses and minuses of moving fall sports to the spring, and football in specific. We haven't had this discussion, and you don't have to actually give your opinion, but what are the pluses and or minuses that would be moving some of these fall sports, all of them, or football, to the spring?
I think the pluses are they're pretty self-explanatory. I mean, you know this. I mean, it's all about the conditioning of your players, and there's got to be weathering on your body, especially in a contact sport like football. And if you think about it, our kids in the time that they'd normally be doing conditioning and practicing during the spring and late spring, early summer, all of that was stripped away, and they're doing it at home on their own, all those things. And so just the weathering part they've missed, and the reps. I mean, football's a game of repetitions, and they've missed all of that. And I think that goes the same for all of our sports here, men's, women's soccer, anything that you do in the fall. I mean, they've lost some of that time. And so I think, if you could delay it and or you push it back to the spring, it gives you time to make up some ground there through the fall with extra practice, conditioning session, and it leads to a little bit better brand of play during the spring, and I don't think you worry about injuries as much. And that's my biggest worry, is the injury part of it, and because of the lack of conditioning, and I understand it's going to be a shorter season and all of those things, as everybody says, but a shorter season in a non-contact sport, I understand, but contact's contact, and you could say, hey, I'm going to have a shorter MMA fight, but you still get knocked out in 1 or 2 rounds, right? And that's the way football is. It's just it's still going to be a violent game at the end of the day. So, like I said, you worry about that part, the injury, the conditioning part. But, I think so it would be a plus if you can push it back to the spring. I know what happens though when you go into the spring, you're on top of all the other sports.
Mm-hmm.
You're on top of baseball, basketball in the winter, and practice schedules, and field time, and where do you go with a foot of snow out on the turf out there in February, March, and so it starts cutting into all your other times, your facilities. You're just we're a small school, and you're gonna stress some of your facilities out, and so I can understand that part of it, and to me it's a small payoff, but I do understand, that part of it. And, going into the next season, you've now played a shorter season, almost like back-to-back seasons. And so I think that can make long-term, again, I think there's long-term risk of injury because you're playing, 7 or 8 games in the spring. You're getting 3 months off in the summer, generally dedicated to conditioning, and then you're right back at it in August. And so, again, that's a very short window too. And so I just, the whole thing to me doesn't really revolve around facilities and money and those things. It's for the well-being of the players. And, I look at it right now, playing in the fall, I think it gives you the best opportunity to, get through a shortened season. Hopefully you don't get beat up too bad. You've got the spring to have your spring practice again, and then prepare for the next fall. But, like I said, I'm not the guy in charge. It's above all of our pay grade here. Somebody else is going to make those decisions for us at the end of the day.
Coach, lastly, have you had any preliminary discussions with your players who are going to be seniors this year? The NCAA has announced already that if for some reason, a season gets cut short by 50% or less of the scheduled games, those players are all going to get that year of eligibility back. Or if your season doesn't get played at all, they'll get that year of eligibility back. Have you had discussions with some of those seniors about, what that might look like if that is the case, maybe what their class schedule would turn out to be this year at ODU, if they could plan forward to maybe be here another year if that's what they would choose?
Yeah, I think a lot of them, have talked about they would still come back and want to play in the 6th year. And, we've talked about grad schools to second majors to a little bit of anything that will help them, stretch out, being able to play through that fall semester. And then we've had a couple that are just, I don't think it's feasible for them because they're in, the science programs, the pre-med programs. And it's, hey, look, I enjoy doing this, but, I've got to make a decision here. Am I going to go to, chiropractic school, med school, whatever that next professional school is. And this is, I've already been accepted. This is my opportunity to get in next spring, next summer, whatever. And so you don't want them to put their careers on hold. And so it's a fine line. And some of our guys, we have guys on both sides of the fence that say, hey, if I'm graduating, I'm going to finish and go on and get into my career. But we also have guys saying, I could graduate and finish, but I want to stick around and play one more season. So it just depends on each case. And I've talked with, not all of them, but the majority of them. And we'll go in every direction. It's kind of like the way the season's getting ready to go, every direction, right? Our seniors are no different.
Well, it's always good to talk to you. Hopefully we can talk about an upcoming game or why your long snapper's snap is so slow or who you're getting ready to cut or get rid of next, because I know that's the things you actually really like to talk about, right?
Well, yeah, it's like I said, it's been an experience, but it's been good. I think it's made everyone really go back and reevaluate, what you're doing coaching wise and, how you're going to meet and handle your players and just different issues that would come up that you just would have never, given any thought to. You've had the opportunity to put thought in those
right.
things now. And so I think it'll help us. I think if we've taken advantage of this downtime and we'll hopefully it's going to show up for us this fall.
All right, Coach. Thanks for the time. Hopefully we'll see you on the field very soon.
Thank you.
Head coach Kelly Cummings on this week's Panther Podcast Weekly. When we come back, we'll visit with one of his top returning defensive players and linebacker Dauson Dales right after this on Panther Podcast Weekly.
Now's the perfect time to pursue your master's degree at Ohio Dominican University.
My master's degree in healthcare administration fit in perfectly with my full-time work schedule. I was able to advance my career, and the content applied directly into my day-to-day working experiences.
ODU's graduate programs in business, healthcare administration, and education can be completed 100% online or on campus. Apply now at ohiodominican.edu/grad.
Panther Podcast Weekly continues. This is Todd Bell. This week, our department stop is Ohio Dominican football. And if you'd like to keep up with what's going on with their teams, you can follow them on social media at Ohio Dominican FB. Been a long line of great linebackers at Ohio Dominican, and ready to add his name to that list is Dauson Dales, a first-team All-GMAC selection last season as a junior and was second on the team with 97 tackles. Dauson, welcome to Panther Podcast Weekly. So as we're kind of closing in there on fall, you're about ready to come back to school, hopefully have a football season. Tell me what kept you busy, though, over the summer. I imagine everybody had to kind of be a little creative with your time.
Yeah, it was definitely tough coming home and in the whole state of Ohio and the rest of the nation. It was tough to get in workouts. It was tough to get in just those extra sprints, but we found ways. I'm pretty blessed to have a pretty awesome supporting cast here in my hometown in Defiance, and I was able to find some facilities and find some weights and find some extra places to run some sprints and stuff like that. So it was definitely tough, and our football team knew that coming in, but we took the extra measures, the extra steps, just to make sure that we were still getting better and we were getting stronger, we were getting faster, and that's pretty much what's consumed my whole summer. We were on campus there for a little bit, and again, you just kind of have to roll with the punches here, as there's so much uncertainty. But we've definitely been training. We've definitely been trying to get back to where we ended last season, so we can come in this new season and just keep on going.
How much did you miss just kind of coming down to Columbus from Defiance, where you are and where you're from, and being with your team and doing those workouts in the summer, and then, as you said, having to try and get creative and almost do it on your own at home?
Oh yeah, I miss my teammates so much. I mean, from a small hometown in Defiance, I mean, it's kind of hard to find facilities, find weights and stuff like that, but it is definitely hard to make that atmosphere that you usually have with your teammates, usually the encouragement aspect and all that stuff. And I really missed that, especially when I was training. I missed hanging out with everyone, because it was a couple months of just cell phone texts or FaceTimes, and it was really hard because you couldn't really leave your house unless you were training or anything like that. And it was really tough. I was happy to come back on campus not too long ago and get to see all the guys again, socially distanced, and it was really good to see them again. And we're all super excited to get back on campus.
Dauson, describe to me your season from a year ago. Again, I mentioned a lot of great linebackers. You played against with one in Cam Moore alongside him. But walk me through your season last year, because I thought the defense just really set the tone early in the year at Shepherd and really had your work cut out for you in some games.
Oh yeah, you said it from the get-go. I've come after a long line of really good linebackers from my freshman year till last year. I mean, there's always a Cam Moore, Cam Cole, Ross Thompson, Alicio Amato, Trey McIntyre in front of me. And it's been really good to learn from them, and they're amazing football players, amazing people too. But last year was really special for me again. It was my first year starting, and we really came out with a mindset of just attacking people. And we had the people to do it in the secondary and the up front, and we just really wanted to set the tone early, especially, like you said, we did that at Shepherd. But just the whole season, we really just wanted to attack people, be physical, and just be really good tacklers. And I feel like we showed really good spurts of that, and we really want to transfer that over to this year and just get better and keep the ball rolling, because I think we have something special coming on here on the defensive side of the football, with some younger guys and some veteran guys coming back on the team. So I'm really excited. But last year was an awesome year. I mean, we're going to miss playing against those guys.
So what is it about this? Is it the system? Is it the coaching? Is it, as you said, you came in with linebackers ahead of you, and so you want to keep that standard at a certain level that allows the linebackers here at ODU to continue to succeed? Because it seems like now every year, Ross Thompson had the career record, and then Cam set it, and depending on how many games we get this year, you could set a tackles record for a career. What is it about that makes the linebackers so good here?
I think it starts with our coach. I think Coach Cummings has a lot to do with what happens.
Stop giving Coach Cummings all this credit.
Trust me, I don't want to, but he deserves the credit that he deserves. I mean, he's been amazing linebacker coach since the day when I've been in there. He implements a great culture here at Ohio Dominican of just learning the aspects, your effort, your response, and your outcome. And I think the biggest thing with the linebacker core, we're so tight together, and we really buy into, even if you're the scout team guy, you're the second team guy, you're the guy that maybe not travel, but we always seem to buy into what Coach Cummings is teaching us. We're really observant, and like I said, I got to watch the best linebackers in ODU history the first couple of years of my career here. And it really helped me. They really helped. And they're not selfish with what they do. Ross was always helping me. Cam was always helping me. Cam Cole was always helping me. So it's just buying into the system and just learning. And I think Coach Cummings does a great job of that and implementing that.
You guys did not have an opportunity to have spring practices last year as you were ready to gear up after we were to come back from spring break, and then that never happened. So I have to imagine that for a guy who's a junior going to be a senior, that would have been the opportunity for you to kind of take over the reins as a more of a leadership type role. You had great leaders around you that were going to be graduating, so now you can grasp that leadership role. So how hard is it for you and other seniors to say, okay, now I'm going to be a leader when you've been away from this team for so long?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I was really looking forward to the spring ball and, like you said, taking in that leadership spot. But you have to roll with the punches. You can't really predict what's happening right now in our world. So being a leader through cell phone text, through FaceTiming your teammates and making sure they're holding people accountable is what I've really tried to do, because that's all I can do right now. Mm-hmm. And once we get back on campus, that's different. You can set an example from different aspects. But it's been tough. But we've had leadership meetings and stuff like that, and we've really tried to keep people on the ball, make sure they're training at home, make sure they have the resources they do, make sure their mindset's right, and making sure their mental health and all that stuff, because it's a crazy time in this world right now. And being a leader is all cool and stuff on the football field, but being a leader in someone's life right now, being their go-to person to talk to, especially in all this, is something that's super important right now. And the NCAA is really implementing mental health and stuff like that. So we really tried to just be there for guys, holding them accountable and all that stuff. But I'm excited to be back on campus and actually play some football, and be a leader on the football field too. You know,
it's interesting. You brought something up, and I thought about it. You have to be a leader in a variety of different ways now, because before on the field it was, hey, get to the classroom, get to the film study room, make sure that you're on time for this. But now it's going to be make sure you're adhering to the correct protocols, make sure you're wearing a mask, make sure you're staying socially distanced, make sure you're not going out on the weekends and potentially risking a season or players not being able to play. And you and all of the players of all of the sports here at ODU are going to have a kind of a different type of leadership role this year.
Yeah, it's very true. And we've had some leadership meetings about that. And we all want to play football at the end of the day. We want all fall sports to play. And I think really adhering to these rules and stuff is going to be crucial in doing that. And we've seen the major leagues do it and all that stuff, and they've been successful. So we've really been trying to implement that and just being encouraging, making sure people have the right PPE or your mask and stuff like that, making sure they're hydrated and being socially distanced. That's the hard part, especially in football. Mm-hmm. And we all come back together. But it's going to be tough to have people, but we have the leadership to do that, make sure we're all safe, and make sure we can play football this season.
Dawson, I talked about some of your career numbers that you've had and the great season that you had last year, but I can't help but look at, there was one glaring statistic. You don't have an interception yet in your career. Now, come on. When are you going to – I know Alicio stole all the interceptions last year from the linebacking core, and I remember a couple of years ago, Ross Thompson had an interception, and he weaved his way all over the field, and he got about 2 yards short of the goal line. What is it going to take for Dauson Dales to get his hands on a football and intercept something?
You said it right. Alicio had all the interceptions. They just kept throwing to him. They didn't want to throw to me. They were scared. So, but yeah, that's that needs to happen. I did rub it in Cam's face. I had a touchdown last year.
Yes, you did.
I mean, I can't say the same for Alicio because he had like 10 of them. But yeah, it's coming. It's coming. Coach Cummings lets me know about that all the time. So we'll be working on it.
And that fumble recovery in the end zone that you had last year, I remember watching the film. You came from about 9 miles away to recover. You were the last possible person, if you looked at the screen in the film, that say you're going to be the guy recovering that fumble. How did that happen?
Well, I have to give a shout out to Cam and Alicio because they both missed the fumble recovery. So by the time I got there, I was expecting to celebrate with someone. I got there, the football was at my feet. So I just jumped on it.
Just fell on it.
So shout out to those guys. Thank you for not recovering that fumble.
Yeah, but it shows that you play to the whistle, right? Always play to the whistle. Coach Cummings mentioned earlier on in our podcast today, and as I asked him the question about the potential of the season either being postponed, cut short, and the opportunity for everybody to gain that year of eligibility back. I know it's kind of a tricky spot for you, and you were one of the players that he mentioned, the opportunity for you to graduate on time or early and get out of here and continue on with your career. So what comes to the mindset of making the decision of, I would like to stay for an extra year. I'll take more classes. I'll put my career on hold for another year to have the opportunity to play.
Yeah, this has been a topic that my family has been talked about a lot. And it's super hard with all the uncertainties right now. But what in my mindset right now, I want to graduate and end my career as a Panther. But I will be graduating at the end of this winter. So I would have to enroll in a master's program or work or enroll part-time or something like that. There's a lot of things that roll with this dynamic right now. But as a student athlete, my school's first always. I love football. Football is my passion, but school's first. And but in my end game, my end goal is to end my career as a Panther, end my career on Panther field. If that happens, doesn't happen, I don't know. Again, it's all the uncertainties that's about this. But I'm preparing. My teammates are preparing to play this football season and play next football season, or play in the spring or whatever. We don't know yet. But I would love to end my career as a Panther. Started there, and that's my mindset right now. Again, I can't say anything more than that because, frankly, we don't know yet. So.
Yep. Yeah. Well, it's always good to talk to you. More fun watching you play on the field, and hopefully you'll be out on Panther field coming up this fall, getting practices started, and hopefully this pause that the Great Midwest has put in place is going to work, and that we'll all be playing sports by the end of September. Dauson, great job. Always a pleasure talking to you. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you very much. Have a good one.
That'll wrap up another edition of Panther Podcast Weekly. My thanks to head football coach Kelly Cummings and Dauson Dales for being a part of this week's show. Remember, you can watch past episodes by going to our YouTube channel, search Ohio Dominican Athletics, and for the latest updates and releases of Panther Podcast Weekly, follow on social media at Ohio Dominican Athletics. This is Todd Bell. Thanks for watching again here today. And as always, remember, it's a great day to be a Panther.